everyone, welcome back to my channel Tutelage, a guide to learner. Here, this is Sriparna. I hope you all are doing good. In my last session on education, we had already discussed one of the most interesting chapter, that is research aptitude. You all know that which is equally important in UGC Net exam as well as PhD MPhil enrollment. So this chapter is one of the most interesting chapter of education according to the UGC Net exam also. So today we are going to explain a new chapter, that is communication, and I think this chapter is also a very important chapter according to the UGC Net exam paper 1, and this chapter will help aspirants in answering questions on the basics of communications. Around 5 to 6 questions based on this topic find places in each year's question paper. So there has been a change in the type of questions. Earlier questions were based on the facts about radio, TV, award ceremonies, etc. Answer to such questions have to be learned by rote. So rote learning is one of the most important key to get a success in UGC Net exam. But now the entire process is totally changed. Okay, so about the now the trend has shifted to concept based questions. So such questions test the candidate's understanding of a concept such as meaning of communications and nature, characteristics, etc. So I think this chapter will help you a lot. Okay, so we have already I have already told in my previous sections, we had discussed the teaching aptitude and research aptitude. So, if you have missed my previous chapters, so please go and check it once. I think those chapters are a really grateful session to everyone. So, please, if you have any doubt on it, so please do follow these sessions, and all sessions links are available in my first comment and my description box. Okay, so let's begin the session and move on the main slide. So here we can see today's topic only. Okay, so the first concept of today's discussion, that is meaning of communication. I have already told that portion. Now going to the second part, that is types of communications. Basically intrapersonal, interpersonal, formal, informal, direct, mediated, horizontal, vertical and diagonal communications will discussed here. Okay, and now going to the third concept, that is characteristics of communications, and we all know that which is also one of the most important concept of this chapter. Okay, so let's start. So here we can see our next concept, basically the first concept, that is meaning of communication. So the word the communication is derived from the Latin words communicare and the communicatio, and which means to share. So that means communication means exchanging some ideas with someone, and it can take place through a verbal or non-verbal medium. It involves multiple flows of information, and it is a basic requirement of all social and economic and political activities. So basically, in simple words, communication is the interaction between a sender and a receiver. So basically, it deals with a sender and receiver. Okay, so it is the interaction between a sender and receiver. So I think the basic meaning of communication is clear to everyone. So now move on to the next concept, and that is the definition of communication. So here we can see the definition uh, according to the William Newman and Charles Summer. Just a minute, learner. So, Chol Summer. So, communication, according to their view, communication is an exchange of ideas, facts, opinions, or emotions of two or more person. And we have already told communication means exchanging our ideas, our facts, our opinion with someone, with more person. So, it is basically the interaction between two or more people, between a sender and receiver. So I think this is clear. So now going to the next topic, and that is types of communication. We have already told there are few types of communication. So today we will discuss only uh, 6 to 7 types of communication. Okay, so the first types of communication, that is intrapersonal and interpersonal. Okay. So at first we have to know what do you mean by a intrapersonal. Okay. So intra. What is the meaning of intra, learner? Intra. Intra means within. Okay. Intra means within. So, intrapersonal communication is that type of communication which takes place when a person communicates with himself. Okay, for example, we can say when planning something, analyzing a situation, daydreaming, diary or journal writing, all are the basic uh, example of the intrapersonal communication, because this type of communication basically takes place when a person communicates with himself only, not the other person. Okay, so now going to the next type, that is the interpersonal. So that is the basic difference. The first one is intra. Intra means within, and second one is inter. So interpersonal communication is the interaction between different person. Okay. So intrapersonal communication takes place when a person communicates with himself. That indicates intrapersonal communication is the interaction between the same person. Okay. And on the other hand, interpersonal communication is the interaction between different person. It can be in written, verbal or non-verbal form also. Okay, so I think this is clear. And what is the basic difference between intrapersonal and interpersonal communication? So now move on to the next type. So that is formal and informal formal and 1 minute. So, formal and informal communication. So, at first we have to discuss what do you mean by a formal communication. So, do you know, learner, what do you mean by a formal communication? So, formal communication basically takes place in a governmental departments, firms, NGOs, and other organizations. So, it is more reliable, and it is usually, so formal communication is usually in the written form. Okay, and it is obviously time consuming. Basically it takes place in a governmental departments, firms, NGOs, other organizations, for transmitting orders, instructions, plans, policies, etc. So now going to the second type, that is the informal communication. So informal communication basically takes place in interaction between friends, family members, etc. So I think this is clear. So in the formal communication, flow of information takes place through some predefined channels. But on the other hand, informal communication, there is no requirement for flow of information through any particular channel. Basically, it takes place in interaction between friends and family members. So that is the basic differences between formal and informal communication. Okay. So now move on to the next type of communication, that is direct and mediated communication. So we can see direct communication involves face to face interaction. Okay. So there are two person, one is sender and another one is receiver. So in the direct communication, the sender and receiver have face to face interaction. Okay, and there is no need of using any medium for communicating. And on the other hand, mediated communication does not involve face to face or direct interaction between sender or receiver. So, mediated communication is basically just opposite to the direct communication. It takes place through some medium like any third person, that is newspaper, radio, computer, social media, or other technology. So, it doesn't involve face to face or direct interaction between the sender and receiver. So these are basically known as direct communication and mediated communication. So I think this is clear. What do you mean by a direct and mediated communication? So now move on to the next slide, and here we can see another type of communication, that is horizontal, vertical, and diagonal communication. So at first we have to discuss horizontal communication. So horizontal communication basically takes place when there is an exchange of messages and information between persons of equal rank of different departments or organization. Okay. So, horizontal communication is the exchange of messages or information between equal rank persons of different organization. Okay. And now going to the second type, that is a vertical communication. That is the basic differences between horizontal communication and vertical communication, because vertical communication involves the interchange of messages and information between persons of different ranks within the same organization. So horizontal communication is related with the equal rank people of different organization, and on the other hand, vertical communication involves different ranks people within the same organization. So that is the basic differences between horizontal communication and the vertical communication. Okay. So now move on to the next type, that is a diagonal communication. So diagonal communication basically takes place between persons of different ranks from different organizations or departments. Okay. So diagonal communication takes place different rank people from different organizations. So both are different. Okay. So in the horizontal communications involves only different organizations or departments. Vertical communications involves only different ranks people, and here we can see diagonal communication involves different ranks people from different organizations. So that is the basic differences between horizontal communications, vertical communication, and diagonal communication. So I think all are clear to everyone. We can discuss another concept, that is characteristics of communication. So first point, that is communication is a complex process. Just a minute, learner. So communication is a complex process, but why? Communication is basically an art, a science, as well as a craft. So it involves creativity, verifiable principles, and certain vital techniques and skills, respectively. So it is art, science, and craft, and that's why communication is a complex process. I think this is clear. Okay, so now going to the next point, that is uh, the skills required for effective communication are learnable. Okay, so all skills which are required for effective communications, to get better communication, all are learnable. So one can become an expert with practice only, because all skills are learnable. Okay. So now going to the third point, communication is not a static, but it is a dynamic process, because it is not a fixed concept. Communication is continuously changed. The nature and the characteristics of communication is continuously changed. So that's why it is a dynamic process, not a static one. Okay. So now move on to the fourth point, that is it is a cyclical or continuous process. We have already told communication process is a dynamic process, so that's why it's a cyclical or continuous process. Okay. So for a message or information sent by the sender, there will be a response from the receiver. So the sender then send a reply on the basis of the response of receiver. So to which the receiver responds, we have already told. So the process continues, uh, which is basically the that is called sender and 1 minute receiver. So at first information or message through a medium or channel goes to receiver, and sender gets a receiver response also. So that process is a cyclical or and continuous process. So I think this is clear. So now move on to the next point. Communication comprises flow of ideas and information. We have already told communication is a bridge of meaning. It involves systematic and continuous process, and it is an exchange of ideas. So that's why communication comprises flow of ideas, information, etc. So and the flow of ideas and information in communication can be oral, written, or through the use of some gestures. Okay. And we have already told formal communications and informal communication, so that's why we know communication can be formal and informal. And now move on to the last point, that is communication should be clear, concise, complete, and concrete. So I think this is clear. So always communication should be clear, concise, complete, and concrete. Okay. And we have already know communication is basically a purposive activity which aims at creating awareness or gathering information about a certain actions, topic, procedure, or idea. So it leads to development of personality. So communication is one of the most important thing to which helps to better personality development. Okay. So I think this is clear. All are clear to everyone. So we are done for the today's session. I hope this session will be a very useful and helpful to you. So if you like my session, so do not forget to like, share, comment, and please do some support and subscribe my channel for getting more useful sessions. And please press the bell button for getting notifications uh, from my side. And I will come again with a new exciting session. Till then, stay tuned. Thank you to all of you. Happy learning. Keep commenting.